Hi, friends. I'm Zach.
I'm Mitch.
And we are an excellent little podcast.
Presenting you a little movie podcast starring Zach and Mitch.
Wait, we're doing a podcast?
Zach, how many times have I told you we are doing a podcast? Get over it.
1, 2, 3. This many times. Oh, right. They can't see that.
You're right.
Well, also something you might not see is we're actually recording in a brand new location.
It sure is a brand new location. Zach, would you like to tell them where this brand new location is?
In a secret underground base in Turkey.
In Turkey?
You know what? I'm going to leave it to Nathan Drake to find us. I'm going to leave a map and a bunch of clues, and I think he's going to go ahead and find where exactly we're recording.
You know what? That's actually funny because we are reviewing Uncharted at this very moment.
Oh my God, what a beautiful segue.
For those of you that don't know, Uncharted, the movie starring Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as Victor Sullivan / Sully, just came out this past weekend. We saw it. We are going to review it, and we have some thoughts.
Yeah, and as well, Mitch, this is part of your top 10. This was your number 7.
Yes, it was, and I have some thoughts to say. Did it make the cut for my top 10?
We will see.
Yeah.
But just to give a quick summary about what happened in this movie, essentially, it all kicks off when Tom Holland's character, Nathan Drake, is bartending and living in his 20s when all of a sudden Mark Wahlberg's character, Sully, comes over and says, I have an adventure for you. I know you and your older brother were very much into this adventure, and I need your help.
Yeah, a quick segue. Nathan Drake's brother, Sam, they were living in an orphanage together. A very big character in the 4th Uncharted game. This movie is based on the Uncharted video game franchise. Very solid franchise. I do recommend you checking those games out, Zach.
Absolutely. I hope to play them at some point now that I finally have a PlayStation. So, but yeah. And calamity ensues just from the two of them trying to work together to find this two ships of lost treasure that I believe equals about $5 billion in gold, which is, that's a lot.
What would you do with $5 billion, Zach?
Oh, if I had $5 billion, it's like such a huge amount of money that genuinely I think I would just suffocate from the amount of money and amount of possibilities that you could have with that.
Kind of like a Scrooge McDuck type of thing?
Oh yeah, 100%. I would buy a money bin.
Oh,
it would be a very empty money bin because I would spend all my money on this money bin, but it would be but I would have a money bin.
I think one thing I would do with the $5 billion, I would first pay off my student loan debt.
Oh, yeah. And then have $5 for lunch.
$5 for lunch? How big of a student loan do you think I have? I wouldn't have $5 for lunch. I would more have like $2 for lunch.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But
I put a down payment on a house with the probably final $2 I would have.
But enough of that. Enough about the summary. Basically, it's just Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan going on a nice little treasure hunt with a nice little few friends along the way. Sophia Ali as Chloe, and a nice little Antonio Banderas as Moncada, and Tati Gabriel. Am I pronouncing that name right?
I think so. Gabriel
as his little lackey.
Braddock, yes. We're going to split our review up into 2 parts. Yes. We're going to have a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. We will make sure that we let you know when that spoiler section will come. And don't worry, we will go ahead and give our final review of whether or not we ate it up or we fed it to the dog. We will go ahead and bring that to you right before we get to spoilers. That way, if you want to go into this completely non-spoiled and just know what we want to think, you can go ahead and do so.
So, Zach, when you mean feed it to the dogs, does that mean feed it to your new dog?
My new dog? Oh, I actually have him literally right behind us. His name is Jazz, and I love him. He's just really, really skittish right now. But he's amazing. We love him. But enough about my dog. I want to hear about your first thoughts about your number 7. What did you, Mitch, think of Uncharted?
I was just about to ask, because when you said, well, I want to hear your thoughts, were you talking to the audience or were you talking to me?
I was talking to you, Mitch. I promise the only other being in this area is Jazz right now.
Really?
So don't worry. I will only ask for your movie opinions and not Jazz's movie opinions yet.
Okay. So my first initial thoughts were going in, I was really excited to see this movie. I had looked at some of the reviews and I was seeing some negative things, but I really didn't want to go too deep into those reviews. So I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go see it. I'm going to get entertained. I'm really excited. I've been excited to see this movie for a long time. It's been in development for years. So I went with it. I'm glad you joined me, Zach. Thank you very much. I forgot to say that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And my thoughts are, I just felt a little bit of a mixed bag.
That's fair.
A lot of the movie, I could really tell that there was a lot of different voices going into the plot, a lot of different voices going into the script.
Sure.
Because, like I said, this movie was in development for years. Many, many scripts, many, many rewrites, many, many directors. There was so many like pieces of little bits of other people's scripts. You could tell that this movie could have been so much more complete if they didn't have all those many script rewrites, all these many different directors, and that's kind of what hurt this movie.
Sure.
However, this movie survived on the performance of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake.
Nice.
His performance was very, very solid. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just Spider-Man playing Nathan Drake, blah, blah, blah. And there was a few times where he kind of gave off a little bit of a very kind of older Peter Parker style.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, he did very, very well. And for those of you at home that are females, yes, you see him shirtless.
That you do.
Yeah.
But that was interesting.
What was it that you said like halfway through the movie? We saw him shirtless for like literally like 10 full minutes like total, and we didn't see any girls in bikinis or anything. Like,
well, and that was actually, to be honest, and that's actually it was a nice little subversion. I was making a comment about that because like so much whenever you have, because this movie is more geared towards guys. Like I think more guys will fill the seats than women.
oh yeah,
But so much so, usually when it's like a guy's movie, usually the eye candy usually goes to the women, and there's usually a lot more bikini shots. There's usually a lot more panning from like the torso up to the head. They usually focus on like sexualizing women in guy-centric films. That was not the case in this movie, which I thought was so interesting, that most of the sexualization really went to Tom Holland and Nathan Drake, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one that I actually kind of appreciated because, like I get it. You're trying to focus on the male mentality and whatnot, but I don't need women's bodies to be populating the entire time and literally like we're having a serious conversation, but you are in a bikini kind of a thing. Like it's like that never made sense. So I'm happy that the roles were kind of flipped on this movie.
I bet all like the serious men that wanted to see a bunch of bikinis in this movie are so pissed right now. But you know, we didn't. It's not directed by Michael Bay. Sorry.
No major explosions.
No. Another thing I have to add into my initial thoughts was Mark Wahlberg. God bless him. He tried really, really hard. He could not get rid of his Boston accent as Sully. I mean, he tried really hard. I got to give him an A for effort, but his Sully was just... It wasn't Sully. In the video games, he was big. He was hilarious. He didn't really care what anybody thought of him. And he was the same in this movie.
We can probably get into a little more specifics with that. I like that you definitely brought it up, but we can probably get into those specifics once we start talking about the cast.
Thank you, because I just can't.
Yeah, don't worry. Take a breath.
Yeah.
Take a breather. You got it. But we'll go ahead and collect those thoughts once we start talking about the cast.
I was just so disappointed in his portrayal.
Yeah.
The plot very cliche. That was a little disappointing. But the action in this movie, holy balls. The action in this movie was very top-notch for a video game movie. Very, very much so. Very positive.
Yeah.
One little thing before I go to your thoughts.
Sure.
I was kind of hoping to see a little bit more puzzle solving in this movie.
Okay.
In the video games, there's Nathan Drake solving puzzle after puzzle after puzzle.
Yeah.
And he solved a few puzzles in this movie.
Sure.
But I wanted him to do more of his acrobatic stuff. But the action, Tom Holland's performance, it was funny too. Very funny. Those three things really made this a positive movie for me.
Sure. Absolutely.
Now, on to your initial thoughts, Mr. Zach.
Absolutely. My initial thoughts on the movie Uncharted. Similar to echo what you said, I genuinely enjoyed this film. I thought I went in for a good time and I had a good time, which at that point, that's all I ask for movies, especially an action adventure. If I don't feel like I went on an action adventure with these characters, then the movie failed. I felt like I was on a wonderful action adventure movie. However, I feel like this movie would have benefited if it weren't called Uncharted.
Yeah.
And I understand where the creators were coming from with casting both Sully and Nathan Drake younger. So the characters that we see in this movie are the beginnings of these characters and not exactly where we see them when we get to the video games. So it's not exactly where we're seeing these friends at where we know and love them at the moment when we first met them in the Uncharted games.
Correct.
That being said, these characters, and we'll talk about them more when we get to them, felt very, very far away from where we wanted to end, that they just really didn't seem that like their characters. So setting that expectation up for them to be Sully and Nathan Drake just kind of let down. And when you are kind of going through the movie, you're like, is this really Nathan? And you see some like moments of like, oh yeah, that is Nathan Drake, or oh yeah, that is definitely Sully. But you really have to really look hard for those, and they really pop up far and few between. But like you said, the big thing to come out of this movie was the action. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The action. I will genuinely give you credit, Tom Holland, specifically on this. Because I liken the way that you can take a punch to Harrison Ford, because Jesus, if you watch the Indiana Jones movies, every single time Harrison Ford is punched, you feel it. And you see the expression on Harrison Ford's face, and he looks like he just got the wind knocked out of him every single time that he's punched. Every single punch that Tom Holland, quote unquote, took, because, you know, he isn't actually getting hit, but, like, he played it well.
I mean,
he looked like he was getting... Every time he was hit, you felt it. And I enjoy when an action movie can do it. In a modern age where we see so many superhero movies and whatnot, we see so many fights and whatnot, even in Marvel, even in DC, there are fights where I'm just like, yeah, they're beating each other, but I don't feel any of these punches whatsoever.
I mean, technically, we don't know if he actually got hit.
I mean, it's possible that he could have gotten hit once or twice, but, you know, with stage combat, you know, normally you're like at least an inch or two away, but each one felt real, and that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that, like, Tom Holland, kudos to you, dude, because 90% of the time when you do Spider-Man, that's a CGI Spider-Man that's, like, taking the hits.
Yeah.
So I love to see your face actually getting hit. Not that I want to see Tom Holland just get absolutely pummeled, but, like...
Yeah.
The fact that you, Tom, can carry that and take all the hits and make it really, and sell that you are getting hit and you are getting fatigued from each of these fights and each hit, props to you, dude, because that, wonderful. I really do liken you on Harrison Ford level of taking those hits. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are my first thoughts about Uncharted. Let's go ahead and talk about the characters, since we keep on wanting to come back to these characters. As you brought up first, let's go ahead and first talk about Mark Wahlberg as Sully.
Oh, I'll get this out of the way. So Mark Wahlberg as Sully for me was so disappointing. And I had such high hopes because I like Mark Wahlberg as an actor. Mm-hmm. I really, really do. I think he's solid. He knows how to play the tough guy. He knows how to play a badass. It's almost like he completely forgot that Sully, even though he's old and doesn't do a lot in the video games, he's a badass.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And he's a funny badass.
Yeah.
And a lot of his jokes were a little bit off place, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I just felt like this Sully, when he had his jokes, we were more so laughing at Sully.
Yeah,
and
like
not with him. Because I feel like anytime Sully has dialogue in the clips that I've seen him of Uncharted,
right,
he's being quippy. He's intentionally being jokey.
Yeah.
Not like Hardy Har, I'm the comic relief kind of way, but
mm-hmm,
like he's doing it to relieve tension
mm-hmm,
in any of the aspects that I've seen it.
Yeah.
And whenever the jokes came up for Sully in the movie, they were more so kind of felt forced. And like Sully should have a joke here.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And it was missing.
But either the joke just never landed, or it was just like, yeah, it was kind of like the tough guy, like joking of like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. Or yeah, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, that is Sully's humor, but it was not played to the way that the games really excelled and did better at.
I'm going to do like 2 examples from the games about his comedic, because I've played the games and they're very, very good. I recommend anybody that has a PlayStation, whether it's a 4 or a 5, get the games.
Sure.
They are so fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 examples from the games about Sully's comedy. There's one in the second one where Nathan Drake and Sully are running around like chickens with their heads cut off in I think some forgotten forest. And it's hot. I mean, it's scorching.
Sure.
I mean, it's Orlando, Florida heat.
Like in the summer, like August, July.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. They're running around, they're jumping around, trying to solve a puzzle or whatever. And Sully, like all of a sudden, out of the blue, man, I'm sweating like a whore in church. and when I was playing it and he said it, I'm like, because it's so true. You would be sweating like a whore in church. And then Nathan was like, when would you ever see a whore in church, Sully? And Sully was like, have you ever been to a Catholic church? But that's the kind of person Sully is.
Yeah.
And one other example from the games, it was in the first game.
Okay.
Nathan had just solved a puzzle, as you know he does, and they're supposed to be finding, I think, a statue in the first game, because it's worth a lot of money or it helps you find a treasure. I have to replay the game. Remind me to do that, Zach.
Sure.
There's a latch open and he goes down, and it's like a humongous drop. And thankfully, there's a ladder.
Sure.
It's a 10, 15 feet drop, a big drop.
Gotcha.
And Sully looks down. He's like, all right, kid, go down there, grab the statue, and bring it right back up. And Nathan is pissed. I mean, he's so pissed. He just goes down. He's bumbling to himself. He's like, we can do this, kid. How the hell am I supposed to take the goddamn statue up here? But again, that's what the comedy was in the games for Sully.
Yeah.
And the comedy in this movie was basically Nathan scrolling for his phone and he was finding Tinder.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah.
I'm done talking about it.
Yeah. I feel like there are some roles where you feel like it's a combination. Well, it could be like the performance is good, but the script is terrible.
Yeah.
And then there are some times where like you can tell like the script is good, but the performance just wasn't up to snuff. I feel like it was a mixture of both for this one. I feel like Mark Wahlberg definitely tried, and he did his best.
Yes.
But the performance still didn't hit, and the script also was not helping him in any way, shape, or form.
I agree. And that may have something... So a little quick backstory, and then we'll get to Tom Holland. Mark Wahlberg has been involved in this movie for a very long time.
Yeah, he was the first cast member announced, I believe.
He was supposed to be Nathan Drake.
Oh.
This was back in 2010 when it was announced to be in development, and David O. Russell was supposed to direct it, which that would have been solid. That would have been an
interesting movie.
But he stayed on, and they kind of said, well, we want to go with Tom Holland as a younger Nathan Drake. And he said, well, I can be Sully. And they let him be Sully. They let him do it his best. But I'm going to have to go with the former. The script was terrible. And he tried. He really, really did.
I will not say that, like, it's the worst performance Mark Wahlberg has ever given. By far, he's had worse.
Yes.
But I still feel like, to me personally, his performance was also lacking in a few areas as well.
But do you know who did a very, very wonderful job in this movie?
Was it Spider-Man?
No, it was Tom Holland.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Yes. Tom Holland, which I will say, how dare I say Spider-Man? Because genuinely, while you kind of like how you said that he can kind of feel like at some points like an older Peter Parker.
Right.
He really does a good job of differentiating Nathan versus Peter Parker. And there is a genuine divide between the two.
Right. And he had comedic timing for days.
Oh, yeah.
And not only that, and you mentioned how he could take a punch, he could also do so many like acrobatic things in this movie. I mean, jumping around, jumping through water, and jumping
from lights. Like,
yeah, jumping from
like,
light. Oh, that light sequence. Oh man.
Yeah, and you see in the trailer, so we promise it's not a spoiler.
No.
But like, the reason why Tom Holland was cast as Spider-Man was because he's a dancer and a gymnast, and he definitely did showcase a little bit of that here as well.
And he got jacked for this movie.
Oh yeah.
Before we go any further, I do have to mention one sequence for him that just sealed the deal for me, for him as Nathan Drake, when that Scottish guy was like, oh man, what's going on? Like, oh, they get your proper Scottish welcome.
And
then
he's like,
what? I mean, you and I were dying through that whole entire thing.
Again, it was in the trailer, but there are some times where like you can see a joke in a trailer so much, but then once you put it in the context of the movie, it can still play off really well.
God.
And that's one of them, because oh my gosh,
it was
every
so
single
funny.
every single time that him and the Scottish guy interacted, it was so funny.
Oh yes. There's really not much else you can say about Tom Holland as Nathan Drake.
He was wonderful. He was heartfelt. I will give the same criticism though that we gave Mark Wahlberg and Sully versus Tom and Nathan. Still a little too far away from Nathan's character, I feel. Even when we were going through it, I still feel like, I hate to say it, but Nathan still, in my heart and soul, whenever I see any clips from the video games or whatnot, and it should still be Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion, to me, is like the ultimate Nathan Drake, because the character was based around him, and then they did that small little YouTube thing, and I was like, yeah, that's Uncharted, and that is Nathan Drake. If a sequel were to come of this movie, my butt would be in the seat 100%.
Yes.
I just feel like they need to put it a little bit more forward in time, so that we can see still a little bit more of like video game Sully and video game Nathan, because we are just not at that point right here with these characters.
You just want to see Mark Wahlberg with a mustache again.
Maybe. And maybe him just talking about his cat. But but
that cat was glorious.
But enough about Wahlberg and Holland. They are definitely some of the stars of the show. But we also have a pretty major female lead in this show, which is Sophia Ali as Chloe.
So I really don't have much to say about Sophia Ali as Chloe. She was good. I wasn't really a big fan of Chloe in the video game franchise.
Sure.
I was more a fan of Nathan Drake's wife, Elena Fisher.
Gotcha.
Because she was so funny, and so like she could handle Nathan Drake's, because Nathan Drake is a dick.
Yeah.
And she could handle his like dickness, if that's even a word, and with like this complete sass.
Sure.
And Chloe had that. But I also got the feeling that she was trying to be even more of a badass than Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
And already she was more of a badass than Nathan Drake in this movie.
And even Sully, too. Sully was the con man. Nathan was the heart.
Yeah.
And then Sophia was kind of more the muscle, I feel like. Like, she was also a con artist as well, but she fell more the muscle area of this show. Like, she was... If I were to pit the three of them against each other in a fight, she would win hands down.
Right.
I have no arguments.
I would have to agree with you on that one. I think that the director, was it Dexter Fletcher?
I believe
Mr. Zach?
So.
Zach's going to look that up. I feel like the director was trying to get a little bit of tension, like sexual tension with Tom Holland and Sophia Ali in this movie, but it kind of didn't work out because Reuben Fletcher, that's it. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
But I feel like he tried a little too hard with it to me.
Yeah.
Like with the dance sequence.
Oh, yeah. It was a little too hard, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's riding the line of, for me, I don't think it felt forced, but it was getting up there.
Yeah.
Like, they kept on, like, touching it and, like, poking it. Mm-hmm. When they needed to back off, they did, and that was great, but I felt like they were just kind of poking it a little bit too much, but not to the point where it was like, oh my god, just move on. Right. Because, like, I could still see the two of them, like, being romantic and whatnot. Right. There was just some... There was something off. There was a little something off about it. But
she wasn't that bad.
Yeah, she wasn't. She was still enjoyable in parts. She has a twist in the film that we'll get to in our spoiler section.
Yeah, Zach, we're not there yet.
But I genuinely, I only half saw it coming. Yeah. I saw it going either way, and when it was revealed, it caught me off guard, even though I knew that, even though I had a feeling it was genuinely coming. But when they revealed it was really, really nice. Yeah.
But enough of that.
We also have another female lead in this one, but I think we should first talk about the villain, right?
Yeah, but
at the we'll talk about the villain. We'll talk about Antonio Banderas.
You want to talk about Antonio Banderas,
who played Mancada.
So he was short.
He okay.
Yeah,
we'll talk about him because I think Antonio Banderas had a really good character.
Yes,
and I feel like if we stayed with him more and saw him do more,
it would have been solid.
He would have been solid. Whenever he was on screen, I loved it.
I did too.
The thing was, he was just barely in the movie.
I know.
And not to say like he was in the beginning and then he was cut. Right. That's incorrect. He's in the movie, like in terms of like time and pacing, he's in there for for a decent chunk. Right. But you just don't spend time with him. Most of the time is really spent with our trinity of Chloe, Nathan, and Sully. Yeah. And then the villains are just kind of there.
So if we said any more about Antonio Banderas, let's just put it this way, we would spoil the movie for you.
But in terms of his acting and performance, what would you think, Mitch?
I always love Antonio Banderas, and everything he does, I just wanted to see more of him.
I agree. And then, kind of in the similar vein of, we'll talk a little bit more about this next character and this next actress. But Tali Gabriel did play Braddock.
Tati Gabriel.
Tati Gabriel played Braddock in this. She plays as kind of like a side villain, like underling, odd job, like an odd job to Goldfinger, kind of. She's like the head henchman of Antonio Banderas,
and she actually has dialogue instead of
yes she genuinely has dialogue, but like
she was okay.
She just kind of played a basic henchman villain. You knew exactly where her character was gonna go. And when the big spoiler does happen, you understand exactly why it happens.
Yeah. But you know what? Let's just put it this way, Zach. Enough about these cast performances. These people want to hear some action.
Oh, absolutely.
The action in this movie was phenomenal.
I don't think I've ever had so much fun in action since Uncharted. Like man. Every single moment, I was beaming ear to ear when the action was actually going on. And I will genuinely liken it to Indiana Jones because it does go big when it needs to. Like, there is a bigger scene where things are going on. You see it in the trailer, it's the plane action sequence. Like, yes, very over the top. Yeah. But there is, even when you get to like very smaller action scenes, very well done, very exciting, well paced, feel every punch. And they do very interesting things with each fight, which I really love. And yeah, I just love every single bit of this action. And oh gosh, if I don't eat up the movie, I definitely eat up the action. I will say that.
I will agree. And like you said earlier on about Tom Holland's performance, he could take a punch. And I mentioned how he was very acrobatic, very, very much so. you pretty much nailed every little thing about the action. It was there. It was in your face. You felt every single punch. I'm not going to lie. There were some bits in the action where I wanted to get into the movie and be like, oh, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Like the plane sequence. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. The plane sequence. Oh, man.
Yeah.
It literally felt, at some points in the movie, it felt like I was in a video game.
Ooh, which is actually a really nice segue to our next point.
Well, thank you.
Normally with video game movies, there comes a stigma of, oh God, this is gonna be terrible. You just have to think back to the likes of Assassin's Creed or Super Mario Bros. Video games just have never had the legs to translate well to the silver screen, and that's for partial things because video games is an active medium, so it's very hard to bring an active medium to a very stationary medium where you are just watching it unfold. But I feel like Uncharted is one of the best things to adapt to the silver screen because of the action adventure nature of it, and you have a broadening task that you can do, which is finding treasure.
Right.
So what better way to bring it to the silver screen than, of course, trying to find some treasure with some wonderful characters that basically writes the movie itself, which is what Uncharted is.
Yes.
Which, as opposed to like Halo, which is kind of like capture the ring and whatnot, and there's multiple ways that you could capture the ring.
Right.
Like, there's multiple ways you can go about it and not a very concrete way unless you as a player are doing choices.
Right.
But Uncharted does a really good way of, this is your goal, this is your task, let's spend some time with these characters to achieve said task.
Right. So basically, if you're wondering, is this a bad video game movie adaptation like Super Mario Brothers and like Assassin's Creed? Thankfully, it is not.
No, it's a fun new way of video game, very much in the vein of like Detective Pikachu or
Sonic the Hedgehog. Is it as good as those two? I would have to say no.
No, yeah, I would agree with you.
But that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing at all.
No. So speaking of like you've been talking about all these movies, and we've been kind of they want to hear our reviews. Zach.
Yeah, our final decision on how did we eat this movie up? Did we feed it to the dogs, or should we let it cook a little more? I want to specify. We usually break it into 3 categories.
Yes.
It's Eat It Up, which is really great. We loved it. Fun. We recommend it to anybody.
Right.
Let it cook a little more, which it's more so in the vein of it could have been better.
Yeah.
It was kind of meh. Maybe if there was maybe a script change or an actor change or maybe a change of vision from a different director, there was just something missing, so it could have just cooked a little more. And then we have Feed It to the Dogs, which we would not recommend, and we suggest that you pass on the movie because it's not that great. When we have clean plates and not Feed to the Dogs, those we really do save, are going to be very rare when we ever give that classification. We usually don't give those out because those are for the exceptionally great for clean plate and the exceptionally bad that I wouldn't feed that to my dog.
Right.
Well, since it's your number 7, I'm going to let you say first what you thought our review is.
Well, I am going to say I ate this movie up.
Yeah.
Sure, purely on the charm of Tom Holland and the action. If it wasn't for those 2 things, I would have to feed this to your dog.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm also going to have to go ahead and eat this up.
All right.
So here's the thing. Normally, if the charm and whatnot wouldn't have brought it through and I didn't enjoy myself, I probably wouldn't have fed it to the dog. I probably would have said that it needed to cook a little longer. Because again, I feel like if it didn't have Uncharted's name, I would have enjoyed this movie more.
Right.
But because I had the expectation of an Uncharted-like movie for a prequel, I think that's where some of my self was kind of let down, and then the performances were kind of hit and miss, and then it wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. But at the end of the day, when I was trying to think of, okay, how am I gonna review this? I thought of it as, did I walk out of this movie enjoyed? Did I have fun? Was it a great action adventure? I say yes, so I eat it up.
Okay. Okay. So now, do we dare go into spoiler territory?
We do. Wah, wah, wah,
wah,
wah. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Yes, so for those of you that want to leave and not be spoiled, then you can turn off this podcast right now.
Yep, we ate it up, and that's all the information you need to know if you do not want to be spoiled. But in terms of spoilers, 3, 2, 1. Okay, how great was that fucking plane scene?
Oh my god. Like, especially at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I did not think it was going to open up with the plane scene.
Neither did I.
I thought that was going to be not the big third act,
right,
action sequence, but I figured it was going to be near the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
I know.
And not only did we get to see it once, we got it twice.
I know.
It's amazing of how well that was shot. It was a great introduction to Nathan Drake as a character.
Yes.
It was a great introduction to how this action was going to be in this movie.
Right.
And it was a great way to open the movie.
Well, and also it was great on both sides. You saw Nathan Drake's side of the plane sequence, and you also saw Chloe's side.
Correct. Once we actually got into the movie and whatnot, when we saw it the second time, we saw what was going on inside the plane, primarily between Chloe and Braddock.
Correct.
But it was great to see not only that first side with Tom Holland, it was great to make that action sequence new by switching the perspective and seeing it inside, just as you said.
Right. And speaking of Chloe, and we're going to do a quick little segue here, what did you think of that twist?
So, which one? I believe you're talking about the first one with Chloe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I vaguely saw it coming.
I did too.
I alluded it to in my review. I said while I was watching it, I was like, either she is going to totally betray them and go back, or there's gonna be something that they do, right, and she's probably either gonna betray them or have the option to betray them and decide not to.
Right.
And she flat out did. She betrayed him.
Oh, absolutely.
She did.
But we saw it coming.
But it was a viable thing. Yeah. And when it was revealed, it was just like a quick shot, and then there she was, and you were like, "Oh, okay, there's the reveal." But it was really well done. I thought that reveal was really, really nice, and I actually, even though I saw it coming, I kind of liked it. But what did you think of that first twist?
I saw it coming because I know Chloe in the video games has been very hit or miss. She's on Nathan Drake's side, or she's not. I definitely saw it coming from a mile away, and it could have been a little bit more of a payoff, but to me, it just kind of fell flat for me.
Yeah, that's fair. The one thing that I kind of liked about it, though, because, again, this is coming from someone that hasn't played the video games, so I knew Chloe was an established character going into it. Right. I just hadn't seen very much of her from what I had seen of the games. From the moment that you met her, you totally saw that she was in it for herself, kind of a character. Yes. Like, she is very much like a Selena Kyle.
Yeah.
Of where she does it for herself. She's looking out for herself. She doesn't give a rat's ass about you.
No.
She wants the glory. She wants the money. She wants everything for herself. So when the twist happened, well, the kind of like first semi-twist in the temple, I figured it was just her going out on herself and then just going to go on her own little adventure and be kind of like this other side antagonist. So it was like three parties going after.
Yeah.
But then when the actual twist happens, when you realize that she was working with Antonio Banderas the entire time.
Yeah.
That I was like, okay, yeah, saw it coming. But I was like, okay, that makes sense still. But
I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
You mentioned Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that second twist?
And the fact that there was no blood?
So...
Oh, my God.
Mitch, what was that second twist?
Well, Antonio Banderas' character, what's his name, if I may? How do I work this?
Moncado.
There it is. He was killed.
Yeah.
By Braddock. He got his throat slit.
Yep.
And there was no blood.
And it was a deep cut.
I know.
They genuinely played into she went in, stuck it through, and slowly slit it. It was that cut should have been deep. And it looked like a Sharpie marker went it was across his throat.
It was so pathetic.
But I will say, we kind of alluded to it with Tati. her character, you kind of saw that she was growing and that she was going to eventually
be the big
bad.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it's not that I hated Braddock.
Mm-hmm.
I just like Antonio Banderas' character more.
I did too.
She kind of did work as the underling, and I almost wish that it was more of a, like, I'm going to prove myself to the family.
Yeah.
I wish that was the way that they went for that character, instead of more so, I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm going to share the wealth with my fellow comrades. I'm not doing it for my family's glory, kind of thing.
It fell flat.
And I more so bought Antonio Banderas' reason for why he wanted to have this treasure more so than she did. So it just left me for wanting when we finally got to that third act and she was the villain, and I was like, I get it, I understand it, but I'm not a fan of it.
That was one of my least favorite moments about that movie.
However, each time either of the ships hit something, I just went, oh, that's history, don't do that. Each time the ship hit something, whether the ship hit the ship, or the ship hit a mountain, or was getting dragged. The same thing happened in episode 7 with the Millennium Falcon. Like, whenever the Falcon hit a side or something, I was like, no, don't do that.
But you know what?
Oh gosh,
I mentioned that was my least favorite moment, but I'm gonna go to my favorite moment, and that is the beginning scene where you're seeing Nathan Drake literally hanging by a plane as he is waking up because of how windy it is, and he's like, oh crap. It literally reminded me of the second Uncharted video game where he wakes up from a hanging train with a bullet wound and he's bleeding by I'm not talking like this throat slash that we just talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, he is bleeding profusely. It literally reminded me of the second video game.
It's like you're waking up out of a coma.
Yeah.
He was knocked out for a while.
Yeah.
And then you're just coming to, and that's how the movie opens, is him coming to and realizing what situation he's in after he was just knocked out.
Yeah.
Great. It was wonderful.
But that was my favorite moment.
But my favorite moment of this movie definitely has to be...
Oh no. I can already tell this is going to be one moment that I will never ever forget.
It's when they're showing up to the party.
Oh.
And Nathan gave Sully a list of things that he needs in order for them to successfully break into this party and to this auction and make it so that they can get away with the cross, which is the key to part of the puzzle.
Or one of the keys.
One of the keys. And one of the things that he has to have, that Tom Holland lists, is a cat.
Yeah.
And so... and basically, they go and they show up to the party and they don't have the cat with them. Sully, Mark Wahlberg, goes, okay, and what do you need the cat for? Tom Holland goes, for you. You just seemed lonely in that apartment. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And he's like, why? I don't want a freaking cat. Why did you get me a cat?
And then, he kept it.
And here's the thing. You go throughout that movie, and the cat keeps on being brought up because, he's like, I've got this sitter, and I don't know if the sitter is taking care of this cat. And, and you're like, oh, my God, Mark Wahlberg, Jesus, I love you. And then at the end, he has the cat in a backpack.
Yeah.
So I just love the cat bit. So that was one of my favorite moments, was just the reveal of, no, the cat has nothing to do with it. It's just for you.
Yeah.
But also I have to also do an honorable mention. You alluded to it already. It was the freaking anytime the Scottish guy and Tom Holland interacted. Just
what?
What? And then the second time they do it, they don't do it a third time, which to be honest, I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
They did it enough to the point where I was still enjoying it, but stopped when they needed to.
Yeah,
and it was the second time really killed me because the first time I could tell what the Scottish dude was saying.
Yeah,
but I could totally see someone just going, "What?" from that. But the second time, the dude he's just going off.
Yeah,
and it was literal nonsense. I genuinely could not decipher what this man was saying.
Yeah.
And then Tom Holland in the middle of this fight is just like, all right, hold up. Like, genuinely, what are you trying to say? Like, and I'm like, yes, absolutely. Thank you for breaking up that moment with that specific bit of comedy. Because, oh my God, I loved it. I ate that bit up.
Yeah, like you ate this movie up.
Yeah, no, it was great. And that's really all I can say is that as a movie, as an action-adventure movie, wonderful.
Yes.
As an Uncharted movie, it left me a little bit wanting, which, again, I would be okay with a sequel to this movie.
I would, too.
I would be okay. I would gladly get a ticket to a sequel of this movie. Just fast forward on the timeline.
A couple years.
So that... Yes, it can still be a younger Nathan Drake.
Absolutely.
Yes, it can still be a younger Sully, and Mark Wahlberg can still be Sully. Ugh. I believe he can be. But you need to fix the writing so that we actually genuinely get Sully and we get Nathan.
Right.
Or at least still see some of those characters.
Absolutely.
Because we really don't in this movie.
We don't. One quick thing before we end... The cameo of Nolan North.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to write that in our notes, but oh my God. The second that you wash up on that beach and you see him, everyone in our theater that knew it, you heard the gasp. Because everyone was like, Nolan North. Yeah. Nolan North. Nolan North.
For those of you that don't know, Nolan North is the voice actor of Nathan Drake in the video games.
Or the voice actor of almost every video game ever. Oh my God. The dude is a busy voice actor in the video game world.
Very good voice actor.
Very good too. But yeah, no, the second he showed off, and that was the thing. It was, to me, one of those perfect cameos.
Like a Stan Lee cameo.
Like a Stan Lee cameo. He had literally like a little minute of fame. It was more than like a Stan Lee cameo where like Stan Lee usually only got like one line or something.
Right.
Like this was a genuine conversation between Nathan Drake and Nolan North. It didn't overstay its welcome.
No.
You had like a little conversation. You got what you wanted out of the interaction, honestly. And you went away with it like going, huh, Nolan North.
Yeah.
Nice.
He was in this movie.
And it was great.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a good ending point, Zach.
Honestly, yeah. It perfectly kind of wraps up this movie. Really great moments. Really wonderful, well-hit moments. Some cons, but really great.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm Zach.
I'm Mitch.
And we are
an excellent little podcast.